All right. This was something that Peter King mentioned over the weekend that the NFL was going to consider on Tuesday. The owners considered it and they passed it. A proposal to incentivize the development of candidates who would become coaches and general managers, minority candidates working their way through the pipeline. And the best example is this. If the Chiefs lose offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy to a head coaching job with, say, the Texans or the Falcons next year, the Chiefs get 2 third-round compensatory draft picks, one in 2021, one in 2022. And that applies if you have employed the individual at least 2 years, whether you lose them to a head coaching position or a GM job. It's the incentive to have a diverse and inclusive and robust developmental program, people you're giving responsibility to, people you are grooming. There's no incentive for the team that makes the hire. Remember when they suggested that, Chris, earlier this year?
Yeah.
There was a lot of pushback. And as Tony Dungy told me at the time, I interviewed him for a good 25 minutes on this topic.
I remember.
Why are you rewarding someone for doing the right thing?
Right.
There's a stigma attached to it as you walk through the door. Oh,
yes.
You only did this to get some draft picks. So that was the tiebreaker. Wait a minute. What about you wanted the best candidate? So I like that they didn't go that route. There's going to be pushback, though, that there's any type of compensation to create an environment that teams should want to create anyway. But it's gotten so bad.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's gotten bad. It was always bad. It really hasn't improved much over the last generation. I think it's worth a try to see if it does, in my mind, Chris, shift away from the who you know and who you're related to model to just simply giving out these jobs based on merit.
No, that's exactly it. That's where I think it has to be done. I mean, I like the idea of this. I do. I think there's a lot of positives there, really, for the whole league and everything. And hopefully we can do this to jumpstart it. And then we don't have to have this in a few years to where it's finally like, hey, Brian Flores and Chris Gear, man, 2 black guys, they're kind of awesome down there in the Miami team. Maybe I should too. Maybe I shouldn't just hire guys because they're white and I feel more comfortable. Or to the bigger issue, to like you have said, the biggest thing is just the culture of the coaching community in the NFL. And I'm not saying this to disrespect anybody, but yeah, for the most part, it's long-rooted in, family histories. And it is about who you know. It's not about what you know. It's, in fact, all about who you know. And, of course, through that, yeah, it's been a lot of white people who have been running football teams for a long, long time. So who do they know? More white people more times than not. And that's what happens in these buildings. So, from that aspect, I like it. The one question I'll have, and I saw that it's in here in our sheets anyway, so you probably have been thinking about this too. If you're like going to lose Eric Bieniemy, right? And let's just say the Chargers want to hire him. Are they going to be scared to hire him because now they know the Chiefs are going to get 2 extra picks? I would hope not, just because they're going to cut off their own nose to spite their face, right? Hey, Eric Bieniemy's the best choice. Take him no matter what. But I just guess that little unintended consequence does come to my mind just a little.
Well, if Bieniemy's going anyway, it doesn't matter. The Chiefs are still getting the 2 third-round compensatory picks.
That's a good point.
I think where it becomes an issue is where, let's say Bieniemy wasn't a hot candidate, but the Chargers know from facing the Chiefs twice per year, this guy's got something. He's not an A-lister right yet, but he could become one. Maybe and I think in that situation, grabbing away a talented assistant, oh, yeah, they're going to get a couple of third-round compensatory picks. Oh, well, they're losing Eric Bieniemy,
there you go.
And we're picking up Eric Bieniemy,
You're
so
right.
Fine, get your 2 third-round compensatory picks. So,
that's the answer.
But
you're right.
But in a sport where everything gets analyzed and scrutinized and strategized, you are going to have those conversations. You are going to stop and say, wait a minute. What are all the consequences of hiring this guy? We're giving a division rival 2 third-round picks. If we hire him, are we comfortable with that? And it would be foolish to think that football teams that understand, you look at all the rules, all the consequences, all the various issues that may arise, and you factor them into your decision. Is it determinative? No, because, again, I'd rather get a great assistant from one of my rivals than worry about my rival getting 2 third-round compensatory picks. But those could be valuable picks.
Yeah, they
You
can.
could be seeing your rival pick up a couple of key players that will be a thorn in your side for years to come.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. But I think you answered it. I think you're right. The fact that you first off want to hire the guy because you think he's talented and he gives your team the advantage. Second off, yeah, you might lose those picks, but I think your point about, wait, we've taken a great coach off that team's roster too. So, yeah, they got 2 picks, but we took a great coach away. I think there's some merit in that. Either way, I like the idea. I don't think it's being disrespectful to anybody here. I wish we weren't having the conversation, but like you said, it's just gotten crazy. It's out of touch. And something needs to be done there to just jumpstart it a little bit here in this league.
And let's just be clear about how this all got rolling back in 2002. The Rooney Rule emerged in response to a very clear threat of imminent litigation, that it had gotten so bad and the evidence was so clear. All they had to find was a plaintiff. And the problem is, and this is where the NFL will always ultimately benefit from a structure that doesn't result in proper representation in the coaching ranks and the general manager ranks of minority candidates, even though 70% of the players are minorities. The idea that no one is going to give up his career as an assistant coach to be the one who carries the flag for the lawsuit against the NFL. Because at the end of the day, you become the coaching equivalent of Colin Kaepernick if you're the one who sues the NFL for racial discrimination.
Right.
You just are. And I think the perfect plaintiff would be maybe an older coach who's been passed over multiple times, who's maybe thinking about retiring anyway. And who knows, hey, maybe you can throw in an age discrimination claim, because I think age discrimination is as prevalent, if not more prevalent, in the NFL than any type of a racial bias that has manifested itself over the past 20 years or well prior to that. But this all started because the NFL was afraid of getting sued. And we're only going to see truly meaningful change in any American business if they're doing things, whatever the industry, whatever the company, whatever the context, if they're doing something they shouldn't do. The threat of litigation, viable litigation, non-frivolous litigation, that is what's going to get you to change behavior. And people like to complain about the legal system all the time, except when, of course, they want to use it. Then it's great. But, the very people who are rushing into court now are the people who hate the legal system. They hate getting sued. A frivolous lawsuit is any lawsuit filed against me, right? Having the threat of litigation is the thing that keeps billion-dollar businesses in line, which, Chris, is why they hate it so much. They want to control everything. They don't want anyone telling them what not to do. Having the ability of the average person to go into court and to force that billion-dollar business to answer tough questions and be accountable, they hate it.
Yeah.
Except when they want to use it. Then they love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. I get that. I definitely do. Maybe one day it'll take that kind of action. We'll see. We'll see where this goes here. I really it is disappointing the last few years. I always sit there and still think about Eric Bieniemy whenever we have this type of conversation. The fact that there was just no major interest in him last year really bothered me. It really did. He's got everything about it. And we've just seen too many good African-American coaches either passed over or mistreated. I mean, come on. I mean, what's Jim Caldwell, right? I mean, that's an embarrassment to the NFL. It's an embarrassment. I don't know how to say it. Guy was a good coach. Went to the Super Bowl. Goes to Detroit. Man, they were better then than now. But yet he was looked at a bad thing, and let's fire him and get him out of here. I mean, he was going to the playoffs and all that. So that's where it just isn't a good look for the NFL, and I'm glad they're trying to take some action here and get this right.
Plenty of companies have a policy that prohibits any form of nepotism. It really is astounding to me that NFL teams never blink an eye about coaches hiring their children. Never blink an eye.
Yeah.
It's almost encouraged at this point. And I remember one of the things that Marty Schottenheimer, now maybe this was just a pretext because A.J. Smith wanted to get rid of him anyway, but I think Schottenheimer wanted to hire a brother or something like that, and A.J. Smith wouldn't let him, and that contributed to the dysfunction and the ultimate falling out. But most teams don't have any prohibition whatsoever on hiring your kids. And I understand that coaches who have been absent for the 18 years that the child was growing up. Feel
Yeah.
like this is a way to make up for it,
Oh, it
by
definitely
spending,
is.
instead of no hours per day with the kid, they're now spending 20 hours a day with the kid because they're working elbow to elbow to get the game plan ready for this weekend. But I'm surprised that the NFL, because let me tell you, if you want to enhance the pipeline of minority candidates, one way to do it is to say to the white coach, you can't hire your kid.
Yeah.
Period.
I know. That's
That
where
would
it's tough.
that would create a job that would go to someone based on merit,
Right.
not based on genetics.
Right, like maybe your kid can get hired, but not by you where you work or something like that. I mean, that's where it is tricky, and of course, hey, there's a lot of people out there that are the coach's son who are very good at the job too. I mean, there is something to that too. This is where it's a tricky conversation.
Right.
I mean,
because you've been around it your whole life, just
exactly.
like Kyle.
It's the
One of
family
the reasons
business.
Kyle's so good.
Right.
He's been around it his whole life. He is more qualified than anyone else.
That right. Sean
So
McVay
even if-
grew
even
up
if it is-
around it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so that's where it's a really tricky one. It really is. But yeah, we have other instances where, we have certain coaches who in the past few years go and take coordinator jobs or whatever, and it's really just about setting their son up so he can take over. And now I'll get out of the game, but now my son was left in a good spot. I took that job just to set him up, and now I'm out of the game and my son's doing well. That's where it is a little tricky, and I don't know how you fix that. I really don't. That's a tough discussion there.
Yeah, and look, I've heard stories over the years about certain coaches who just hang around that one extra year, hoping that extra year gives the son enough of an opportunity
Right.
to prove that he belongs.
Right.
So that he doesn't need to be tied to dad. He can go do this on his own somewhere, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
What
But
I
there
get
is-
more
there
mad
is-
at than anything, Mike, and just in my experience, is how many people are in the league or in the front offices, again, not even relationships, but just about who you know. Like, never been involved in football in any capacity, but dad was rich and powerful, and I called dad and I said, I want to work for an NFL team. And he called the owner, and now I'm in the front office. I don't know which way is which on the football field, but now I have a job. And that, to me, is more of an issue than the family job. I've told you that. I've seen it too much. Oh, how'd you get this job? Oh, my dad's the lawyer for the owner. How'd you get this job? My dad's the dentist for the owner. I mean, it's just like, what? Okay, great. Do you know what a football looks like? Yeah, I've seen one once before. Oh, great. Now you're going to be calling shots here. That's where I get livid when I start to get into those conversations.
Are you talking about front office jobs that are related to football or front office jobs related to business?
No,
'Cause
to
for a lot of
football
those jobs
too.
that-
To football too. Yes, football. All football I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, yes, if it was for, business purposes, that's a different angle. But that to me is where I get very frustrated when I hear those kind of stories throughout the NFL.
Well, and so many businesses in America are driven by that, who you know and who you're related to, and it's especially prevalent in the NFL. What the owners passed yesterday is aimed at pushing against that, and let's hope that it does. The NFL needs to do it because it's the right thing. Regardless of litigation risk, it's the right thing to do. The litigation system there is to encourage you to do the right thing, but sometimes maybe you do the right thing even without worrying about getting sued if you don't do the right thing.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.